Hi, my name's Addison Huddy. I'm one of the contributors to Apache Geode. I work at Pivotal. Uh, Today, I want to talk about a really cool feature in Apache Geode called continuous queries. Now, if you have any questions about this at the end, you can find me almost anywhere with at Addison Huddy. Twitter is probably the easiest. Feel free to ping me, and I can answer any questions you might have. So, okay, continuous queries. What I got here is I've already cloned the Geode repo, and we're gonna run one of the Geode examples, the continuous query Geode example. I already have those over here, and I have built the latest version of the latest source of Geode, just using Gradle. Already done that, save some time. And we're going to need gfish. So if you've never built Geode before, you can find gfish, which is a CLI that allows us to interact with Geode's stand-up server and locator instances, deploy functions, query, all that. So we're going to need that for this example. So inside build, inside install Apache Geode bin. So in here, we're going to find ourselves gfish. We're going to need that in a second. Now, over here, we have the Geode examples directory. In particular, we're going to be running the CQ examples, continuous query for short, and we're going to be running some code in there. And let's take a look at the code and what we see. You can find this CQ inside of uh, this directory. We're going to be looking at this example class and the random event listener class. Just making this bigger so we can take a look at what's going on. All right, we're importing a bunch of stuff, and we have this example class, and inside that we're going to get a cache instance. We're going to create a region. If you're not familiar with the concept of regions in Apache Geode and you're coming from a relational world, you can think of it kind of like a table. We're going to have this CQ that we're going to start, this continuous query. And we have an init method, a run method, and down here there's a main that's going to get all going. So coming back up here for this init, we're going to grab just with this method connect to a locally running geode. That's a method that's down below and I find handy to use when I'm running through things. We're going to use the cache to get a region, and the region is going to be of type integer. So we're going to be putting a key and value of integers. That's important in a second. And we're going to start down here a CQ instance where we pass in the cache and the region. And this is a start CQ method that I've little helper class down here. The start CQ right here. Okay, this is where a lot of the magic happens. So a CQ, what does it do? It allows us to get updates on our client when the server sees some query function some query get updated in some way. So what's really nice is we can get a pub sub style system, an event-driven system, where we can write a SQL-like syntax to get the results that we want. So if we go here and we look at line 80, line 83, we have this random event listener. That's going to be important in a second, but this is a listener, so when something actually our CQ gets fired, it gets passed to this random event listener. We'll look at that in a second. We're going to create the CQ. The name is random tracker. You'll see why this is important and why it's called random in a second. But this is the magic of the CQ. Using a syntax called OQL, we're going to select everything from that example region we're going to create, where the object, the value, which is an object, in this case it's an integer primitive, but where I is greater than 70. So we're going to trigger this CQ whenever I is greater than 70, and we're going to return this CQ. So what does our random event do? So this listener has an on-end event, and whenever the event sees updated or created data, we're just going to print the standard out and see that things are actually working. So that's what that really simple random event listener does. Now, what else does our example do? Going back up here, we saw that it creates a cache, and we have this run method. And what does start putting data do? Little start putting data here. So for 20 seconds, this is going to run. We're going to generate two random values that are between 0 and 100. And we're going to put that key and value. So you can see that we have a 30% chance of uh, triggering our CQ. So we're hopefully going to see a bunch of stuff being created when we run this example, and then occasionally we're going to see that CQ get fired. All right, now back to the command line. How do we run this? Let's take a look at the README. Every one of the examples has a README. First off, we have to build this example. And then we're going to use gfish to run an included start. We're going to start up the cluster with a what's called a gfish script. We're going to run it, and then we're going to shut it down. So let's first build what we got. Gradle, and we're going to build. So let's build the example. All right, build successful. Now we're going to need to start up a cluster to talk to. Now we can do this all from the example, but for purposes of the demonstration, let's use gfish to explicitly do this. And if we go into gfish run, and we're going to pass in that file to run. So my stuff is located here, and it's CQ scripts start gfish. All right, let's run this, and that's going to start up our cluster. It's going to start up a locator. If you're not familiar, locators are responsible for looking at the state of the cluster. Geode is a share nothing architecture. It's a masterless architecture. So locators are separate, have a separate responsibility from an actual server to simply ping and look at the state of the system so the clients know what to connect to. And while that's getting started, let's get our command ready to run this example. So we're going to use Gradle to do that as well. And simply just pass in run. All right, so we have one server started locally, and these are just different Java processes because I have a single machine here running. But when this thing, what's on the right runs, is it's gonna that CQ, it's a separate thread. You don't have to worry about any of that. Worrying about any of the threading. It's completely thread safe on the client side, and it's just going to sit there and be looking for those events to come back. So we run this. We're going to see data being put and updated into the system for 20 seconds, and then occasionally we should see that CQ get fired. So let's run this. So it's starting up. And the CQ is running, and we're putting and getting some values. So nothing over 70 yet. Oh, there we go. So 89, the value was created, our CQ, and it looks like another one was created as well. 84 was created, and again, 87, 84 was updated because it had the same key as above. So you can see the CQs are a really powerful way of developing a event driven architecture where changes can be made on the server, and our client can take action based off of those events that get sent back to the client. So remember, we're going to stop our cluster just to clean everything up, and that's done. And that is continuous queries with Apache Geode. If you have any questions, feel free to, again, ping me on Twitter or leave a comment below.